100.7 The Bay, joined on the phone. You know him from Impractical Jokers. You know his stand-up comedy special, Terrified, which is available for free right now on his YouTube page, and he'll be performing at the Lyric here in Baltimore on February 23rd. Sal Vulcano, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good, Matt. How you doing?
I'm phenomenal. I'm very excited to be talking to you. I want to jump right in just by asking you about this because it's very fresh in my mind. I just watched it on YouTube like a week or two ago, but you got to be a part of the Kill Tony show at MSG. Can you talk about that experience and being a part of that show and just doing stand-up in that venue? Because I know you've done MSG with Impractical Jokers, but I'd imagine you being a New Yorker, anytime you get to perform at MSG, especially as like a solo stand-up act, that's got to be a huge deal for you.
Oh, huge, yeah. I mean, that was the first time I did it as a solo act. It was really unbelievable. It's funny because you have to do like really short amount of time, which is not like common, right? So for us, for the people that were known, like his friends and stuff he put on, we got to do 3 minutes, but it's still really hard to like tackle like, all right, what am I going to do for just 3 minutes? You know what I mean? Especially, I'm more of a storyteller in my stand-up, and I was going there to hang out. He didn't even tell me. He's like, you want to go on stage like just a couple hours before? So I was like, yeah, for sure I do. You know, all my friends were there that night. So. And the crowd was just like electric. They were so happy to be there because these people, they watched the podcast. So to see all these people finally in front of them, they were hyped up. So I kind of thought of 3 jokes I had, some that I haven't done in many, many, many years that were just kind of short that I could like turn over right away. And I just did 3 jokes I thought that audience would like. And it's kind of wild because it's like, it's not just the crowd watching you because they have a full band on stage, and then Tony and Brian is co-host, and then there's like judges on stage, like big, there was, I think Shane Gillis was on there, Adam Ray, Dave Attell. So it's just like there's so many comedians watching. It's being live streamed. So it actually was heightened even more than just doing a set at the Garden, which is already insane enough.
You're out on tour right now doing stand-up. I've gotten to interview a few different comedians lately, and I'm fascinated to get everybody's perspective on this because I'm such a fan of stand-up, and it seems like stand-up comedy has literally never been hotter and in more demand than it is right now. And do you feel that? And like, what do you attribute that explosion to, do you think?
Yeah, I do feel that. It's pretty fascinating. There's more arena acts and theater acts and club acts than ever before. It's got to attribute it to, believe it or not, the pandemic, when people were looking for something and they weren't making new content on television and people turned to online. Comedy was one of the things that just thrived through the pandemic, and especially when people needed to laugh. It's like, comedians just were doing shows, like live shows over Zoom. We were doing shows at drive-in movie theaters because people had to be like, separated.
Right.
So you just found a way, and I think a lot of comics were the people getting out there and keeping people entertained during that time. And then podcasts during that time were watched a lot because that was the things that were being pumped out, like new content every week. You can count on it during those 2 years. And I just think people got showcased a lot. And, and the comedy has like a community.
I want to ask you about your stand-up special, Terrified, and the decision to put it on YouTube for free, because it seems like that's become a much more viable option for comedians to do with their specials. And I noticed that Ari Shaffir was an executive producer of your special, and I don't think he was the first to do it, but he was the first one that I really took notice of him putting his special on YouTube and it doing so well. What was the process like of deciding how to release the special and eventually just putting it out on YouTube?
Yeah, I think, in this day and age, you want to control your own content and you want to get it out to as many people as possible that can see it. And with YouTube, I mean, you got total control of everything you do. You know what I mean? You have all your analytics. You can cut it up. You can control it, who sees it, where you put it. And it's instant. Like not everyone has a streaming service, but a lot of people have internet service. And it's like you can send someone a link and they can click on it and be watching it 1 second later. Believe it or not, any little barrier to entry, if they have to I got to go on, I got to log on to, Netflix and then find it and then this and that, it's just like you just want it to be, and also be able to be spread around. Like if people like it, you want it to go viral. And that's how we just spoke about how all these comedians, I believe right now, are seeing, so much success is because they're being shared and passed around like their material. And so, before this, comedians really didn't have a choice. Like, either the gatekeepers wanted you or they said okay or not. Now, anyone can post their stuff and anyone can find an audience. So it has quickly become like one of the biggest options for stand-ups trying to get their material out there. And so, yeah, so Ari's like one of my best friends. He had an amazing special called Jew that did, like, I think it was the best special that year. And, you know, he knew I was doing my first role. I've been doing stand-up comedy for a really, really long time, but I just didn't have a special out there. So for me, it was about educating people that I am a stand-up, not just my audience from Practical Jokers or the audience I found on television shows, but for the comedy fan, you know, because a lot of people don't know that. So finally had a break in between these new seasons, and I got something out there that I could finally, like, work for me, you know, like, just be passed around. And so the whole idea is to grow your audience. Because we're coming to places like the Lyric, which I've been to before a few times. I've been to the Lyric with, you know, the guys from the Impractical Jokers a few times, and then I was there with my buddy Chris Distefano co-headlining a couple of years ago. Now I'm finally back solo. So all this stuff works. You just chip away at it, and yeah, I'm excited to be there again.
Absolutely. And since you brought up Chris Distefano, I got to bring up I didn't plan on asking about this, but the viral clip of you guys, I think it was Chris, that you guys were talking, and one of you said Tupperware and saying it with bees, and that clip went insanely viral. When you're in that moment, I can't imagine that you think, oh, this is going to be hilarious and people are going to start sharing this all over the place, right?
Not even in the slightest bit at all. So I started a couple of podcasts, you know, over the pandemic. One was with Chris, and it's called Hey Babe. Another one is called Taste Buds, and it's my buddy Joe DeRosa, who's another comedian. But yeah, no, that was just us riffing like we do. I mean, we've done 1,000 hours of talking, you know, and then you just never know. Chris was talking about Tupperware, and he was pronouncing it with a B. He was saying Tupperware. And I just really caught him mispronouncing it, and I was like, wait, what are you saying? And we just had a little riff on the fact that he was saying Tupperware, and it's actually Tupperware. He was blown away. And just something like that, that's the thing. It's crazy. You just never know what people are going to respond to. And then that thing just took off, like on like TikTok and like social media and stuff. It was tens of millions of views.
It's to this day, every time my wife or I catch the other one mispronouncing something, the first thing we'll say is, "You're throwing bees at me, babe."
That's awesome. Yeah, that's what I correct. Yeah, you're throwing bees at me. It's bees. Dude, it's so funny because, you know, you try to get people to see your material, everything. You try to do everything you can, like, you know, promote it and post it and share it and all this stuff, and then you just never know. Like, you're having a regular conversation, and then everyone across the entire globe hears that. It's so funny.
I do want to talk, you mentioned it a couple times, I want to talk briefly about Impractical Jokers. Something you guys have done that, and I think done very well, is the incorporation of guest stars into the show. Has there been anybody that's come on as a guest star that you particularly thought, like, wow, this person fit in immediately and they made it that much more fun to shoot?
Oh, my God. I mean, we got so lucky because we had about 27 proper guests. This new season that just started, we decided to go back to the old format, but we have, like, it's a little less informal. So the guests were, like, competing in the punishments. Now they just come on any way we want. But we got so lucky because, you never know who you're reaching out to, like, if they're, like, in the space like, the kind of space that we do, like improv and hidden camera, if they're going to shine or not. But we had such a great track record with everybody. But in particular, I think Eric Andre was great because he's already in that space with us. Adam Ray is an up-and-coming comedian, my good friend, that he made it really, really fun. We got so many guys. John Mayer came on, and John Mayer made a decision on the show that was amazing. Like, we had a guest, we had one of the marks on, and we put them in this scenario where they had to lie in front of, like, in a corporate setting to cover one of our, asses.
Right.
And the guy got so flustered, and he wanted to walk out because he thought he was, like, lying. And it should have been like the end of the that moment, but John was like, no, let's just go back and get him. And John chased him down the hall and, like, talked to him. I mean, like, all within the context of the scene, not, like, revealing anything.
Right.
And he got him to come back in, and then we did another, like, 10 minutes with him in there, and that ended up being gold. So we would have never had that if he didn't make that decision in the moment, like, on camera. And it's like not a lot of people would have taken that liberty, but John was a really, really big fan of the show since day one, like back in like 2011. And I think he just really wanted to participate in a meaningful way. People come on and they just kill it. You never know what someone's going to add, you know?
I love that so much. And yeah, that's the perfect example of somebody that you don't expect to, thrive in that environment, and then they do. Sal Vulcano, thank you so much for hopping on the phone with me, taking the time. The tour comes to the Lyric here in Baltimore on February 23rd. The special Terrified available now on YouTube. Thank you for hanging out for a little while. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Matt. Thanks for being a comedy fan.
Absolutely. You have a good one, all right?
Thank you, bud.